testing, 1, 2, 3. Streaming, please. Okay. Good evening, members, and for those that are listening online, welcome to the Environmental Services Committee meeting. Members, I have no apologies in advance. Has anyone any apologies from the floor? No? All good? Thank you. Declarations of interest, members, would just take those as we proceed through the meeting. If you're content with that, okay. Agenda item 3.1, and it's over to yourself, Paul, to take us through the report. Whereabouts are you, Paul? Okay. If you indicate, could you hit your light there? And then I can bring you in. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Item 3.1 is a decision item, and it's a recommendation to members to agree to the participation in a regional collaborative tender exercise for the provision of public health analyst services. This is something that is used by the Environmental Health Department in terms of examinations of food samples principally. A best value can be achieved by collaborating with other council colleagues in a single tender, and we would hope to do that and issue a new contract in relation to that. So it is recommended that members agree to the participation in a regional collaborative tender exercise for those services.
Okay, Paul, thank you for that. Members, any questions? It is a decision-making item. Members, could I have a proposer and a seconder, please? Thank you. Councillor O'Dowd has proposed and Councillor McCartan has seconded. Thank you. No more questions, members? Okay. Paul, if you could indicate to speak, it's back over to yourself again for 3.2. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members, another decision item for you, and it relates to the Private Tenancies Northern Ireland Act of 2022 and two specific new offences that have been created in relation to the provision of fire, smoke and carbon monoxide alarms in private rented premises, and also electrical safety standards within those premises as well. The decision in front of you is to set the fixed penalty amounts for each of those offences. And traditionally, the Council has set its fixed penalty amounts at the highest within the available requirements of the legislation. For these particular offences, in relation to the offence of not providing adequate smoke, heat and carbon monoxide alarms, the maximum fixed penalty amount is £500. And for offences in relation to electrical safety, the maximum penalty available in the legislation is £1,000, both of those as fixed penalty amounts. So the recommendation is to agree those amounts, which is commensurate with the seriousness of the offences and the importance of regulating the private rented sector in terms of housing standards. So it is recommended that those are set. They are fixed penalty amounts. So obviously anybody in receipt of a fixed penalty does have the choice to either pay that or not if they wish to contest it. So the recommendation, £500 and £1,000.
Okay. Again, thank you for that, Paul. Members, have you any questions? No? Okay, thank you. Could someone propose and second it? Thank you, Councillor O'Kane and Councillor Alexander. Appreciate that, members. Thank you. Members, 3.3 and 3.4 are still with Paul. They're information items, but has anyone any questions they'd like to raise? Just indicate. Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
Yes, thank you. Chair, it's in relation to item 3.3. Paul and myself have had conversations before the scheme kicked off, and it was greatly appreciated. Just on the numbers that are presented to us this evening, do we have any idea of the geographical breakdown of where these fixed penalty notices were served? Thank you.
Chair, yes, Councillor Armstrong, thank you. We do have that information. It is largely within the urban centres, which is what we would have anticipated and indeed was the fact with the previous pilot. The pilot did commence on the 11th of November, so the officers from District Enforcement, they are local employees and they are still just finding their feet in terms of the area and bits and pieces. The majority of their work in that initial phase has been within urban centres and so on, so that is where the majority of those penalties have been served. What we would intend to do once the service is bedded in and the pilot is in a little bit further is, after a 6-month period, bring another paper back to committee which will give a more comparative breakdown of realistically what is happening within the areas. As I say, this is just very much an initial paper to you in terms of that.
Okay, thank you, Paul. You want to come back in again, Councillor Armstrong? Now, the thing is, Councillor Armstrong, when I bring you in, I think it cancels the others out, so we'll do that anyway and see how we go. Okay?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Paul. Yep, no. I see that we're still in the early phases of this. I'd be very interested to see how this plays out over the next few months. So I'm happy enough to see how it plays out and when the paper comes back. So yeah, looking forward to it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Alderman Moutray.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Paul, for bringing the report. I very much welcome the fact that we once again have enforcement officers in relation to litter and dog fouling, and that they've had a considerable degree of success in their first 3 months, and that will only increase. I know people need to know in this borough, if they're going to throw down litter, let their dogs foul, that they stand the chance of being given fixed penalty notices. Can I ask, is it possible that a contact number be shared for members who want to pass on information to the officers? And again, good work. Probably get a better, more detailed report, as you say, in the months ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Alderman. Yes, the initial contact, we believe at this stage, is best done through the Environmental Health Department and through myself and my colleagues. The reason for that being, we may wish to allocate our own resources just dependent upon the particular issue at hand. The importance of this pilot is time spent proactively patrolling. So there are occasions when we feel it is better use of our own wardens to complement the pilot service there. So we would prefer to handle that in the first instance. But absolutely, we're very happy to take any intelligence or any information that there is in relation to incidences, and where necessary we will pass it on to district enforcement. And I do have to say, their officers have been very responsive whenever we have requested that be done. But certainly I'll make sure that information is passed to everybody in terms of how to make contact in relation to any specific issues.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Alderman Moutray, are you content with that, or do you want to come back? Okay. Councillor O'Dowd. Oh, sorry, Councillor O'Dowd, I've cut you off instead of me.
Thank you, Chair. Paul, thanks very much for that report. Just something that someone had asked me. I'd spoke to you the other day about dog fouling, and they had said that they see people dog fouling, but how do you report something like that when you don't know who they are or where they live? How do they go about that?
Paul, will you come back in on that one? Thank you.
Chair, thank you, Councillor. Yeah, look, we're happy to receive any intelligence that we're able to receive. If we know the sort of typical times and dates and routes that somebody perhaps is walking their dog, or indeed throwing litter, even if we get a description of the dog and things like that, we can try to pinpoint when it's likely to happen, and then deploy officers to try and deal with that. Obviously, the more intelligence we have, the better it is. If we do happen to know who people are and where they live and things like that, that's obviously the highest level of information. But we're happy to work off anything that anybody has. So if any residents want to come to us, absolutely welcome that.
Councillor O'Dowd, are you happy enough with that? Maybe a wee comms piece wouldn't do any harm, Paul, just to put out to the public how we could, go about reporting it. Just doesn't do any harm. Councillor O'Dowd, are you happy enough with that? Okay. Alderman Greenfield.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I suppose it's just at the back of that. I still, even after hearing that, I'm not sure that most people in the public would even know where to phone or who to get through to. I think it's probably the big issue for we've had that. In Banbridge at the moment, it's an ongoing problem. Our own staff are mentioning it and we're seeing it. But when you do talk to folks, they don't really understand what they actually need to do. Okay, they could talk about the dog, but it would come back that they don't really ever be able to get in touch with somebody. So I'm not sure that that's how we actually could get them. That common space would be a good idea, I think, Chair, for just something to explain to them. Thank you.
Alderman Greenfield, do you need Paul to come back in on that? Is there a wee question in that? Did you want him to come back in on, or?
To tell the public what they would need to do, who to speak to, as opposed to just phone the number that is hard to get through on, I think, is what we're trying to get. So if there's a column space going out, that'll be good. But I mean, I'm not sure how Councillor Dow's meaning, but I know when you do speak to folks, they get a wee bit frustrated as where they actually go with it and think it's not worth the effort by the stage, you know.
Chair, thank you. Yeah, look, as we were saying, we are happy to take any intelligence that we are able to receive and work with that. Realistically, sometimes there is limited amount of information and limited ability to respond to that. Catching people carrying out an illicit act is just by its very nature difficult to do. Once you appear there and things like that, it's people defer and take alternative action, unfortunately. But as I say, in terms of the communication piece, certainly the e-health email address is a principal point of contact, and that's monitored all the time. Obviously, we've got our ordinary phone lines into the council as well. So certainly in terms of the enforcement side of things, we're happy to receive any intelligence that there is. If people genuinely don't have any idea of where it's happening, or the complaint relates more to sort of the state of the pavements and the amount of fouling that's there, then that obviously can be fielded in and passed over to environmental services as well. But yeah, look, those are our main contact points. We're happy to work with anything that we have. As I say, we're very keen to follow up on enforcement action. As I say, taking a lead through from yourselves. So that's something that we're very keen to do. So I'm happy to receive literally anything that we do have in terms of information.
Yeah, sorry, Alderman Greenfield, I'll call you in now. Yeah.
Thank you. So, Paul, just for clarity for me, I get the whole point of what the information stuff. Email in for the public. There's an email in that's answered all the time, or just phone the normal number and ask for. I'm just trying to get, because I think that's the issue. They come to us quite a bit, and they'll email us and then or they'll phone us because they don't feel anyone. They don't really know where to go. So that's probably my point in the communications piece on the website. And maybe it is. I'm not sure, but I just know. It's mainly that there's a contact that they actually can get something back to say yes, because lots of people can tell you the same area and the same part of Banbridge Street all the time, but I don't think that they seem to understand how they can actually report it to anybody. You know, that's probably where I'm trying to get. So my key is just that it's really plain and simple if you spot it, because I know we put posters up, we put a lot of stuff up. Maybe it's on that, I'm not sure. That's what I'm trying to say, that we know exactly the numbers on it that they can get through on. Thank you.
Alderman Greenfield, I'm going to call in the Vice Chair, because I think she's come up with a very good suggestion here, and I think it's excellent, actually.
Thank you, Chair. I was just thinking, listening to everybody's queries there, how people don't like to lift the phone or an email, and if we're bringing out the posters as well, it might be worthwhile having some sort of a thing on our council apps that you can just click and report it. Even if we're putting QR codes onto the posters, that they just scan that and it brings up a way of reporting it without having to ring the number or send an email, because I know a lot of people either can't get through on the number or they just become frustrated that it's a long process when they just want something as simple as maybe just click and report.
Chair, Vice Chair, yes. Look, we'll certainly take that away. That's a very sound idea, and we'll take a look at that. As I say, there are a variety of options that are available to members of the public through the email, through our own app, or indeed just a telephone call. And we do receive quite a number of complaints in that general direction. As I say, we'll take that away and we'll have some thought and see what else we can do to bolster that. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Paul, and all members. Don't want to be rushing anybody on, but the information item 3.4, we content to move on from it? Yep. Okay, no more questions. Okay, agenda item 4.1, and that's Martin, if you could indicate, I can call you in then.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. In November 2024, a notice of motion was brought in front of Ards and North Down Borough Council, suggesting that the council write to the Minister in charge of DAERA, asking that nappy and sanitary waste is considered differently from the normal residual waste, and also then asking that other councils be contacted and asked to support the call. We received the letter in January, and hence the report, Chair. The rationale is that whilst tonnages for residual waste are continually being reduced, it's very difficult for families to reduce the use of disposable nappies and sanitary waste. And therefore then the council are proposing that a conversation be entered into with the Minister around how that could potentially be legislated for. Bearing in mind that it is likely that as we move forward, residual waste tonnages will be reduced. Chair, our council's solution to the issue around nappy waste was passed in December 2023, and that proposed subsidising families to buy traditional cloth nappies. The proposal and the scheme that is running offers £30 off applications that can show that there's more than £50 been spent on cloth nappies. Chair, it hasn't been taken up very widely. There's only really been 6 applications for it, 2 of which have been successful. And probably the reason for that, Chair, is that there's probably a need to spend in excess of £100 in order to buy enough cloth nappies to, for one baby. And so therefore, even though council are offering £30 off, it is financially prohibitive for some families. The recommendation, though, Chair, is that we join with Ards and North Down and enter into a conversation with the Minister about, how this could potentially be brought forward. And secondly, then, that we maintain our current position with regards to our own scheme, though we would engage with the Communications Department and maybe see if we can lift the profile a bit more and see if we can make it a bit more successful than it is at the moment, sir. Sure.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to officers for the report. No issue with sending the letter. I think anything that we can do to help as a region, Northern Ireland, to meet its recycling targets is to be welcomed, and I suppose it is encouraging that we are going to stick with our own scheme. It was positive when we were able to bring that forward back in December 2023, and obviously that comms piece is really important to try and encourage the uptake. I think also if we can encourage the idea around sort of invest to save type scheme that it is, I think that might help as well, but I appreciate the affordability isn't there for everyone in the current economic climate, but yeah, happy to propose, Chair, that both the letter and the scheme. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. Do we have a seconder? We have a tie here. Councillor Alexander, straight forward. Thank you. Members, no other questions? Content to move on? Okay, thank you. Okay, Martin, thank you for that. And we're over to Claire then for decision item 5.1. If you indicate to speak there, Claire, I can call you in. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. So this is a decision item and relates to external events in Council's Parks in 2025-26. So some of the background to this: every year Council Parks are used for a wide range of external groups hosting a range of sporting and community events. And due to the nature of the events, there is a requirement to seek consent regarding Council's bylaws in order to gain permissions for the events to proceed. Members, you have a list there of a number of events. I would draw attention to the fact that there are a number with TBC against them in terms of dates and times, and some further detail to be provided. So with that, I propose to amend the recommendation, and for those events with no details still to be confirmed, that committee grant consent and permission for those events listed within the report to set up event infrastructure and trading at various parks and open spaces across the borough in 2025-26. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Claire. Alderman Moutry.
Thank you, Chair, and I thank Claire for the report. I'm happy to propose that those groups that have given their full details that we go ahead and process them tonight, and I would propose accordingly.
Thank you, Alderman Moultrie. Alderman Greenfield.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. Yes, I'm happy to second Alderman Madry's proposal. Thank you.
That's great. Members, I don't see any other lights on. If I can just move on then to information item 5.2. Whilst this information item, member, cut myself off there. Alderman Moultrie, I was just going to say if anyone wanted to make any comments, so I'll call you in now, Alderman Moultrie.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. I've gone through the report. We met as a cross-party group of councillors in Lurgan Park on the 11th of November, and we certainly can't say that the antisocial behaviour stopped in the interim. Right up until a couple of weeks ago, there was sectarian graffiti on the play park, and thanks to the council staff who removed that. But there's reference made here to a working group, and an ASB working group, and it's made up of so many different groups: police, education authority, youth justice, sports development, PCSB. But you know, on the ground, we're not seeing any change, and we're now in early March. And what concerns me is the light nights are coming. Young folk are going to be out more often. So I would ask just that officers get together, redouble their efforts, and let's see if we can get some practical outcomes. Because as an elected member to date, I don't really see any change that has happened since we met, unfortunately, on the 11th of November. Thank you.
Okay. I wonder, should I take all the speakers at the one, and then Claire can address it all at the one time? Would that work? Is it all in the same vein, members? That Councillor Johnston, you have indicated next. Is yours something similar? Okay. Call you in too.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just want to welcome the work of officers in PSNI on behalf of my colleague, Councillor Peter Lavery. He also attended that meeting and found it really useful. But I think, as Alderman Moultrie has alluded to, that there does need to be action on the ground. And I think when the report talks about, you know, the potential CCTV there, you know, that could happen in the short term at sort of a relative low cost if we could advance that. And I think that, in comparison to what we spend on cleaning up the place after antisocial behaviour incidents take place, I think we can move ahead with that if we can do that scope and work out as the report says. But yeah, I think we just need to see a little bit more action on the ground. But I think we're getting there, but it is to be welcomed, the work so far, but just to keep on it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. Councillor O'Dowd.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I totally agree with Alderman Moultrie. I too was at that meeting, and I agree there's very little, we can see very little that has progressed from then. I also was on a Teams meeting yesterday, along with, I was going to say Kate, with the Vice Chair, and they had said, they'd mentioned that they were trying to get costings for security. Do we know anything, does Council know anything about it, or?
Okay. Councillor O'Dowd, is there anything else you want to add before I bring Claire in? Go ahead.
Just that something would need to be done. As Alderman Moultrie said, we're coming into the light nights and it's going to get worse. It really is.
Thank you, elected members. Some very valid points there, and something which I will take on board, and will regroup with my colleagues to see what else can be done in respect of the points raised tonight. In relation to the security question, Councillor Dowd, that was part of a bigger alternative operating model piece. So it was looking at security council-wide. So again, I'll speak to my colleagues to see where that piece of work is at and bring something back to a later committee, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Members that raised that, does anybody want to come back in on that, or are you content to wait and see what comes? Councillor O'Dowd, okay.
Sorry, the only thing that I would say is, again, I'm mentioning the light nights are coming, so if it could be brought forward as soon as possible, it would be brilliant. Thank you.
No, 100%, Councillor O'Dowd. Thank you. Okay, members, agenda item 6 is correspondence, which I don't have any. And could I have a proposer and a seconder to go into confidential business, please, members? Alderman Moodry, Alderman Greenfield, you just caught me eye. And if I could just let me know whenever the live feed is turned off, please. Back in the public, please, for all 10 seconds. Right, members, we're back online again and we're on agenda item 8. Any other business? I have 10 items of business. I'm only joking, of nothing. I'm joking. Right, members, good night. Thank you for your participation and for your interest in the committee, and safe home. Good night.